The wedding ring was still on his finger as Keanu Reeves talked about loss, healing, and finding reasons to keep going after tragedy strikes. Ellen was discussing the actor's journey through grief when she noticed the man in the second row staring at a small photograph, while tears mixed with the hollow expression of someone who had stopped believing tomorrow would be better. What happened next would prove that sometimes the most important performances aren't on movie screens, but in kitchen tables where broken fathers try to explain to their children why daddy cries, and that sometimes the greatest act of courage is simply deciding to stay alive for one more day. It was a contemplative Monday afternoon at the Ellen DeGeneres show, and the studio hummed with respectful energy. 400 audience members had gathered to see one of Hollywood's most beloved and authentic stars discuss his latest work. Ellen, elegant in a deep charcoal blazer with subtle silver threading, was thoroughly enjoying her conversation with Keanu Reeves, who sat with characteristic humility in the guest chair, wearing a simple black suit that reflected his understated presence. His gentle demeanor filling the studio with that blend of profound sadness and hard-won wisdom that had made him more than just an actor, but a symbol of resilience in the face of unimaginable loss. "Keanu," Ellen said, leaning forward with genuine compassion, "you've experienced so much loss in your life, yet you've managed to find ways to keep creating, keep connecting with people. What do you want to say to people who are struggling with grief?" Keanu's expression grew thoughtful, his famous reserved nature taking on that quality of someone who had looked into the abyss and somehow found reasons to step back. "Ellen, I think grief is something we carry with us forever, but it doesn't have to destroy us. The hardest part is waking up each day and choosing to engage with life when everything in you wants to disappear. But sometimes we find that the choice to keep going isn't just for ourselves, it's for the people who still need us." The audience listened with the kind of reverent attention that Keanu's authenticity commanded. This wasn't typical celebrity promotion. This was real conversation about surviving the unsurvivable. "And when you're responsible for other people," Ellen continued carefully, "when you have children or family depending on you, how do you find the strength when you feel like you have nothing left to give?" "That's the most difficult thing," Keanu said honestly, "because children need you to be present, to be stable, to show them that life is worth living, even when you're not sure you believe it yourself. You have to find ways to fake hope until you feel it again, to model resilience even when you're breaking." That's when Ellen noticed him. In the second row, slightly to the left, sat a man who appeared to be in his late 30s. He had dark hair that looked like it hadn't been cut in months, worn clothes that suggested he'd stopped caring about his appearance, and in his hands he held a small framed photograph. His name was David Chen, though Ellen didn't know it yet. What caught Ellen's attention was the way David was staring at the photograph, while Keanu spoke about loss and responsibility to children, tears streaming silently down his face as he traced the glass with his finger, his entire posture radiating the kind of despair that suggested someone who had given up on tomorrow. David's hands were shaking as he held what appeared to be a family photo, and Ellen could see him mouthing words silently to the image, as if having a conversation with people who couldn't answer back. Ellen's instincts, sharpened through 20 years of reading her audiences, told her this wasn't someone inspired by Keanu's message about choosing to keep going. This was someone who had stopped believing that choice was possible. "Keanu," Ellen said gently, "hold that thought about finding strength for the people who need you. I think someone in our audience is struggling with exactly that right now." Keanu followed Ellen's gaze toward David, his expression immediately shifting from entertainer to deeply concerned human being as he recognized the signs of someone drowning in grief. Ellen stood up from her chair and took several steps toward the audience. "Sir in the second row with the photograph, are you okay?" David looked up, startled and ashamed by the sudden attention of 400 people and multiple cameras. He clutched the photo tighter and shook his head, clearly wanting to disappear. "I'm sorry," David said, his voice rough with disuse and emotion. "I shouldn't have come. I don't belong here." Ellen walked down the steps that separated the stage from the audience, something she did only when every instinct told her someone was in immediate danger. "What's your name?" Ellen asked, now standing directly in front of David's row. "David Chen. I was a software engineer." Ellen knelt down in the aisle beside David's row, her charcoal blazer spreading around her as she created a safe space in what must have felt like overwhelming exposure. "David, can you tell me about that photograph?" David looked down at the framed picture, then back up at Ellen with such raw pain that it made everyone in the studio understand they were witnessing someone barely hanging on. "It's my family," David whispered. "My wife Sarah and our twins, Emma and Michael. They're 6 years old now. This was taken last Christmas, 2 weeks before Sarah died." The studio fell into that profound silence that happens when hundreds of people confront the reality of a father's worst nightmare. From the stage, Keanu Reeves stood up immediately. Without being asked, without consulting producers, he walked down to join Ellen and David. This celebrity interview had just become something infinitely more urgent. Keanu approached David with the reverence of someone who understood exactly what it meant to lose someone you built your entire world around. "David," Keanu said softly, his voice carrying the gentle authority of someone who had survived the unsurvivable. "How did you lose Sarah?" "Car accident," David replied, his voice barely audible. "Black ice. She was coming home from picking up medicine for one of the kids who had the flu. Completely random, completely preventable if I had just offered to go instead." Ellen felt her heart breaking as she watched this conversation unfold. "David, how are you managing with the twins?" David's composure cracked completely. "I'm not. I'm failing them every day. They ask for mommy, and I don't know what to say. They need stability, and I can barely get out of bed. They need a father who can take care of them, and some days I can't even take care of myself." Keanu knelt beside Ellen, creating an intimate circle while David continued to clutch the photograph like it was his only connection to a life that made sense. "David, have you thought about hurting yourself?" The question hung in the air, and David's silence was answer enough. "Every day," David finally admitted. "The only thing stopping me is knowing that Emma and Michael have already lost their mother. I can't make them orphans. But I don't know how to keep going. I don't know how to pretend that life is worth living when everything good in it is gone." Keanu's expression had shifted into something Ellen had rarely seen from any celebrity, a fierce combination of recognition and determination to pull someone back from the edge. "David, I want you to listen to me very carefully," Keanu said with quiet intensity. "I understand the impulse to disappear when the pain becomes unbearable. I've stood at that edge myself, wondering if everyone would be better off without me." David looked up at Keanu with something approaching hope for the first time in the conversation. "How do you keep going? How do you wake up every day and choose to exist when everything hurts?" "You don't do it for yourself at first," Keanu said honestly. "You do it for the people who still need you. Emma and Michael need their father, not a perfect father, not a father who has all the answers, but their father who loves them and shows up even when he's broken." Ellen stood up slowly, her heart racing as she realized they were witnessing someone on the edge of a decision that couldn't be undone. "David, when was the last time you asked for help?" "I don't know how to ask for help," David admitted. "Sarah handled everything emotional in our family. She was the one who knew how to process feelings, how to create stability. I just worked and provided money. Now that she's gone, I don't know how to be both parents." Keanu reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out something unexpected, a worn piece of paper with phone numbers written on it. David, this is a list of grief counselors who specialize in helping widowed parents. I've used some of these numbers myself. There's no shame in needing help to learn how to live again. He placed the paper in David's hand. But more than that, I want you to promise me something. I want you to promise me that you'll call one of these numbers today, and that you'll tell Emma and Michael that Daddy is learning how to take care of himself so he can take care of them better. Ellen felt tears welling in her own eyes as she watched this exchange. David, what do you think Sarah would want for you and the children? She'd want us to be happy, David said, fresh tears streaming. She'd want the kids to remember that love exists, that family matters, that life can be beautiful even when it's hard. And how can you honor that if you're not here? Ellen asked gently. David stared at the photograph for a long moment. I can't. I know that logically. But emotionally, I feel like I died with her, and I'm just going through the motions until I can figure out how to stop. Keanu stood up slowly. David, grief isn't something you get over. It's something you learn to carry differently. And the way you carry it changes when you realize that staying alive isn't just about surviving your own pain. It's about making sure that Emma and Michael grow up knowing that their father loved their mother so much that he kept living to honor her memory. Ellen began removing her charcoal blazer. David, this blazer has been with me through some of my most important interviews. But today, it's witnessing something more important than any celebrity story. It's witnessing someone choosing hope over despair. She placed the blazer around David's shoulders. You came here today carrying grief that feels impossible to bear, but you're not carrying it alone anymore. But it was Keanu's next words that reached David in a way nothing else had. David, I want you to know something. The fact that you're still here, still trying to figure out how to be a father to Emma and Michael, even when every day feels impossible, that's not failure. That's love in its purest form. Sarah didn't just leave you with children to raise. She left you with a reason to discover who you can become. Keanu stood up and addressed the cameras directly. If there are people watching this who have lost someone they can't imagine living without, who are struggling to find reasons to keep going, please know that grief is the price we pay for having loved someone completely. But survival isn't betraying their memory. It's honoring it. The moment that brought the entire studio to sustained applause came when Ellen asked David what he wanted to say to other widowed parents who were struggling. I want them to know that feeling like you can't go on doesn't make you weak, David said, his voice growing stronger as he looked at the photograph. It makes you human. And maybe the goal isn't to feel better right away. Maybe the goal is just to keep showing up. One day at a time until showing up starts to feel less impossible. Keanu's eyes filled with tears. That's exactly right, David. Showing up is everything. Within hours, David Chen was connected with grief counselors and a support group for widowed parents. Keanu personally funded his therapy and stayed in regular contact to check on his progress and the twins' well-being. 3 months later, David appeared on The Ellen DeGeneres Show again, but this time he was accompanied by Emma and Michael, who spoke about how their daddy was learning to smile again and how they were learning to remember mommy in happy ways. David had started a support network for widowed fathers and was slowly rebuilding his life around the idea that surviving trauma was a way of honoring love, not betraying it. The segment sparked a national conversation about male grief, the isolation of widowed fathers, and the importance of mental health support for people raising children alone after loss. David became an advocate for widowed parent support, speaking about the difference between surviving and healing, and how community can make the impossible feel manageable. Ellen learned that day that her job wasn't to interview famous people about their latest projects. Her job was to create moments where despair could be interrupted, where isolation could be replaced with connection, and where people on the edge could be pulled back into the land of the living. Keanu Reeves learned that the most important performances happen not in movie theaters, but in moments when shared pain becomes shared strength, where someone else's story of survival gives permission to keep fighting for one more day. And David Chen learned that grief never fully disappears, but it can be transformed from something that destroys you into something that connects you to the deepest truths about love, resilience, and the sacred responsibility of staying alive for the people who still need you. Because the most powerful movies aren't always the ones with happy endings. Sometimes they're the ones where broken people find ways to keep loving, keep showing up, keep breathing, and discover that survival itself is the greatest tribute they can pay to the people they've lost.